The golden light of Amara's temple flickered softly, reflecting off the towering columns that lined the sacred hall. High Priestess Isolde Valkyria stood before the altar, the weight of her vision pressing heavily upon her soul. Before her knelt Sir Edric Vaelthorne, his armor gleaming beneath the candlelight, his greatsword Soulbrand resting at his side. His expression was unreadable, but his storm-gray eyes held the intensity of a man who had never known fear. "A darkness grows in Vel Tarsis," Isolde began, her voice steady, though the tremor of divine warning still lingered within her bones. "I have seen it in a vision, though I do not yet fully understand what it is. It is ancient, it is powerful, and it is corrupting the faithful of Amara." Edric said nothing, waiting. "This evil works through a servant," she continued, her eyes narrowing as she recalled the haunting image from her vision, the veiled woman, golden-eyed and smiling, standing amidst the ruin of all that was once sacred. A woman of terrible power, she walks unseen among the people, bending them to her will. Her presence twists their souls, turning them away from the light, pulling them into something unholy. Sir Edric frowned. "A heretic?" Isolde shook her head. "No, worse. A corrupter, a temptress, a priestess of something that should not exist, a force that even the gods do not yet recognize." The knight's jaw clenched. "You will go to Vel Tarsis," she commanded. "You will seek out this corruption, and you will end it." She stepped forward, placing her hand upon his armored shoulder. "Amara's light is with you, Edric. Do not falter." He bowed his head. "I will not." Vel Tarsis had once been a city of light, a jewel of the coast where the faithful thrived under the grace of Amara. Now, as Edric Vaelthorne rode through its crumbling gates, a chill settled in his bones. Something was wrong. The once pristine streets were filthy, the white stone of the buildings now stained with crimson and soot. The people, if they could even be called that anymore, watched him with predatory eyes, whispering among themselves, their lips curling into knowing smiles. Women in sheer silks draped themselves over the balconies, their eyes dark with invitation, their mouths speaking silent promises of pleasure. Men gathered in the alleys, their hands stained with blood, laughter bubbling as another unfortunate soul was dragged into the shadows. The air was thick with incense, sweat, and the coppery scent of death. It was as though the city had been swallowed by a dream of wanton excess and violence. And something was watching him. The corruption was not hiding, it wanted to be seen. His gloved hand tightened around the reins of his warhorse as he rode toward the Temple of Amara, the once sacred structure looming at the city's heart. And as he approached its grand entrance, she was waiting for him. She stood upon the temple's threshold, a vision of dark perfection. Raven black hair cascaded down her back, its silken strands catching the dim torchlight. Her skin was pale, flawless, her figure draped in flowing crimson robes that whispered against the stone. Golden eyes, molten and knowing, locked onto him as a smirk played at the corners of her lips. Daemonweaver? The air between them crackled with tension, something deeper than recognition, something primal, ancient, unfinished. Edric's heart hammered once hard. Why did she seem so familiar? Daemonweaver tilted her head, studying him as he dismounted, her gaze drinking in every inch of him. The sharp angles of his face, the broad expanse of his shoulders, the controlled grace in his every movement. "A knight of Amara," she purred, voice like silk. "How interesting. You don't belong here." Edric stepped forward, his eyes hard, his grip tightening on his sword. "And you do?" She smiled, slow and knowing. "More than you know." For a moment, neither moved, their gazes locked, something twisted between them, unseen yet undeniable. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low. Her smile widened, her golden eyes burning into his soul. "Oh, Edric," she whispered, "I think you already know." And in that moment, he did. It was impossible, unthinkable. But he knew her. Daemonweaver's smirk deepened as she saw the realization dawn in his eyes. Then she struck. Edric barely had time to react before she moved, fast as a serpent, fluid as shadow. Her robes became a blur of crimson and black, her hands weaving dark sigils into the air as power surged around her. His instinct saved him. Soulbrand flashed, intercepting the arc of black fire that erupted from her palms. The impact sent him skidding back, his boots grinding against the temple's stone floor. She was strong, too strong. He launched himself forward, closing the distance, his blade swinging in a deadly arc. She twisted away, the air warping around her as she vanished, only to reappear behind him, her nails grazing the back of his neck. "You're quick," she murmured. "Good, I like a challenge." Edric whirled, striking. Their weapons clashed, sending sparks dancing in the darkened hall. He fought hard, relentless, his years of training pushing him forward. At first, it seemed he had the upper hand. Daemonweaver was fast, but he was faster. His strikes drove her back, forcing her to retreat. She dodged, but just barely. A mistake and she would fall. But then Lothenia whispered, and Daemonweaver's power surged. Dark tendrils erupted from her fingertips, slamming into his chest. Edric choked as cold fire seared his soul, his vision darkening. "Did you think you could win?" she whispered, stepping closer, looming over him as he fell to one knee. "Did you think you could resist?" Her hand caressed his cheek, her touch both tender and cruel. Edric gasped, his strength fading beneath the weight of her dark presence. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Daemonweaver leaned in, her lips just inches from his ear. "I will break you, Sir Edric." Her hand clenched into his armor, dark energy pouring into him, corrupting, twisting, suffocating. The knight's body convulsed, his resolve shaken. Then, with a last desperate effort, he shoved her back, staggering to his feet. But he knew the truth. She had won, and now the huntress had marked her prey.